I was also asked to provide a little message as well this morning, so bear with me as I read from my sloppy handwriting here. As most of you know, my name is Jason Pickles, and I am a child of God. However, that always wasn't the case. I wasn't always a believer, but from an early age, I always had a sense that I was going to be dead by 40. It's not a forbidding sense. It wasn't a doom and gloom feeling. It was just a matter of fact. The east is where the sun rises, the west is where the sun sets, and I was going to be dead by 40. I accepted it. Didn't bother me. So as I grew up, this was something that was always sort of in the back of my mind, but never really played into my life decisions. I grew up in a happy home, had a loving family, did well in school, never really got in trouble per se. And then finally I made it out on my own. And then I was young, dumb, and full of pride. Now I'm just older. It's amazing what sort of situations you can get yourself into when you let your pride and arrogance lead you. And unfortunately, I made pretty much every stupid decision you could ever make. I was bad with finances. I was bad with relationships, both personal and through work. I did things that harmed myself and my family. And again, pride said that I was right and nobody else could tell me otherwise. Growing through my late teens and early 20s, I was the type of person that did well at work. You know, I knew that I had to buckle down to make a dollar because that dollar would support the alcohol that I wanted. It would support the drugs that I wanted and consumed. Unfortunately, I abused both for a number of years. And to this day, I still thank God, even though I was not a believer at that time, I thank God for him having a hand over me because I would not be here today if it weren't for him. The amount of times that I really can't even remember anymore, unfortunately, that I would drink and drive like a dummy, that I would arrive home with a set of keys in my hand going, how did I get here? You know, having absolutely no recollection of the time from leaving a bar to the time I got to my home and I drove. Now, thankfully, because of God's intervention, I never harmed anyone when I was doing these stupid acts of driving drunk. I never caused any accidents, never harmed anybody, thankfully. But that doesn't condone the behavior. It was absolutely asinine. However, that being said, he did see me through these events, and eventually I came to the Valley from Moncton, New Brunswick. I knew that at that point in my life, I needed to start making some changes, although I didn't know what or how to make those changes. I just knew that if I were to continue on the path that I was going on, 40 was going to come sooner than later, and I may not even make it to 40. Probably going to be dead by 30. So I left Moncton, came to the Valley for a change of scenery and change of pace. And eventually I met what became to be the love of my life, Lisa, who unfortunately is not here today. She is at work. And through her, my life has changed for the better. She has enabled me to fulfill what I should have been through Christ. And I thank her tremendously for that. Once our son was born 10 years ago, we both realized that even though we weren't churchgoers, that we should probably become involved in a church because it would be important for William to grow up in a church. We recognized it. But it was something that was always in the back of our minds, but we never really saw it to fruition until about 5 years ago. 5 years ago, William was at school towards the end of his school year, and they were having a field day at the Grandview Manor where they went and did activities with the seniors so that the seniors could get out and watch and participate. So my better half went to volunteer, and Evan as well was one of the volunteers from the church who went to help them as well. Evan and Lisa ended up standing next to each other for most of the morning. And of course, Evan, as he is wont to do, talked to her and invited her to the church. I believe a few days after that meeting, we were going to be having a corn boil here at the church. So timing was perfect. So we came. We came to the corn boil, not really knowing what we were coming for or not having sort of a goal in mind, but we came. And we came, we ate, we saw, we came back on Sunday. And as soon as we sat down in the pews that first Sunday morning, I knew that this is where I had to be. It's not where I needed to be or wanted to be. It's where I had to be. This is where God had been calling me for 40 years. And finally, I found where I was supposed to be and what I needed in my life. And it wasn't drugs, it wasn't alcohol. So that year was 2018. That was, I believe, around June or July that we first started coming here. And by December of that year, I was baptized and I became a follower of Christ. So in December of 2018, it was approximately a month before my birthday. And as I stated, I was going to be dead by 40. December 9th, 2018, I was baptized, just shy of my 41st birthday. So at the age of 40, my old self died, and I was born again to Christ. So something I didn't even know for 40 years was in the works. So everything that we do may not necessarily play out to the way that we think it will, but it plays out to what God will do for us and how his will and his timing will play out in our lives. And that we have to trust and that we have to have faith that what he says is true. And I know that since coming to Christ and being born again, I am a new person. I used to be somebody who had rage issues, who would fly off the handle for the mere inconvenience of being inconvenienced. I was somebody who would let their pride and their arrogance dictate that I was the only person who was right. And that was just the way it was, whether you liked it or not. And if you didn't, then my rage kicked in. Now, unfortunately, that has caused a lot of suffering to a lot of people that I care deeply for. But thankfully, through the work of the Holy Spirit in my life, my rage has no longer been as much of an issue. I can't say that it is no longer an issue because it's always going to be there. It's something that I have to work on. But thankfully, the Holy Spirit has strengthened me tremendously to be able to do so. Since becoming a follower of Christ, I have become a better person. I have become a better husband, and I have become a better father to my son. And that is what I am thankful for this weekend, is what Christ has done in my life and in the lives of my family. Thank you. All right. So let's see what else we got here. Andrew Skid. What do we got here for schedule? So we've got our closing song. Great is thy faithfulness.